The next important thing that we're going to want to talk about when we look at these documents are places. Now, a place is anything from a hamlet or a spot on a hill to a city, to a province, a country, an ocean, a mountain. Anything qualifies as a place. And much like people, we tend to take our understanding of geography a little bit for granted. If we see a city's name, we say, yeah, I know where that is. But do we really? Do we understand where that city actually is particularly, and where it is in relation to the letter writer or the object writer? Do we understand where it is in the context of other places that are mentioned within that document? Or other places that aren't mentioned in that document, but are important to events or people that are mentioned in that document? Do we really understand how big these places are, or how small? When I first began my PhD, I kept referring to the northwest corner of a particular parish, or having traveled across a parish, journeying to the other side of a parish. And I thought this was a perfectly sensible thing to say, and my PhD supervisor took me aside and says, you would be hard-pressed to get to the northwest corner of a parish that was about the same size as a block or a street in a normal city. It was a tiny little place, and I was talking about it as though it was gigantic, just because I had never been there and because I didn't have a firm enough idea in my head of how large this place really was. So when we look at our document, we're going to look at all the different places, whether they're specific names or geographic entities or general descriptions, and we're going to highlight those in magenta. And because we're doing this in the same document where we highlighted all the people, it'll give us a good sense of the difference between the people that are mentioned and the number of places. As we turn to the document, we're now going to highlight all the different places in magenta or bright pink, and by putting them in the same document as where we've highlighted all of the people and places, you'll get an immediate visual sense of how important place is as opposed to person in this particular primary source. So we'll start with Dunedin, Otago, and New Zealand, and we'll continue throughout the entire document. Okay, now that I've gone through this letter, you can see that places are not as frequent as people. And again, for a personal letter, that may seem pretty common, but it does tell us something about the point or the theme of this particular document. People, relationships between people, rather than geographic relationships. A couple of little notes is that I did have places that were specifically named, Dunedin, Wellington, Nelson. Other ones are more ambiguous, this province or home, and they're things I'm going to have to spend a little more time researching. The next thing we want to look at are places. Places are pretty straightforward when it comes to adding information about them. You don't need to put a history of the place, just like you don't need to have a biography of the individuals. You just need the basic information that's going to let you find that place again and give you a sense of where it is in the world. And in this case, Wikipedia is a really good place to start because of some functionality Wikipedia has. So let's take Dunedin, for example. So we look at Dunedin in Wikipedia, and again, it just double checked for us that yes, this is on the South Island of New Zealand, the second largest city. Now, it's the second largest city today, not necessarily in 1865 when this document was written. So if we go down on the sidebar of this particular document, you'll notice it has the latitude and longitude of that particular location. And that's super helpful. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to put it into my document. I'm also going to put that it's on South Island, New Zealand. Now, why on earth would I want to put the latitude and longitude of that place, as well as the province or the country that it's located in? Well, there's a couple reasons. First, it helps me disambiguate or say which one of the many Dunedins this one particularly is, but it also gives me a sense of how far away places are. Now, longitude varies in mileage depending on where in the world you are. Places that are on the equator The distance between different degrees of longitude can be quite large, whereas you can run around all 360 degrees of longitude at the North Pole in a couple of feet. But latitude remains consistent across the globe. So, if you notice the difference in latitude between two places, you can immediately see how far apart they are, north and south. And if they're at similar latitudes, you can have a good sense of how far they are apart at that particular difference in longitude. Again, this is something that you'll pick up over the years as you do it more and more, but understanding the specific part of the world these locations are at a glance, without having to go and look them up every single time, really will help you understand your document better.